Good evening and welcome to MTV Community Forum. I'm your host, Byron Campbell, and I'll tell you something about my co-host just now. But wherever you are on MTV, Channel 18, YouTube, or Facebook, welcome and thank you for joining us this evening. Of course, and my co-host, Chris Diali. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Byron, and good evening to our listeners and viewers. I'm worried because you say you had to tell them something about me. We welcome you to another community forum and we're glad to have you.
Chris, very active week. A lot's been happening. I want to start with politics, Chris. It's been reported, Chris, that we are aware that the NNP convention, which constitutionally drew over 2 years ago, hasn't happened. Members of the party we know have been talking about it. The community has been talking about it. In fact, the two calypsos, the king and the deputy, and the second runner-up, sang on that issue. You know, that was their song, NNP and who owned the party. But I have to understand that a special committee has been established by the leader of the opposition, by the leader of the NNP, to vet, so to speak, potential candidates for the convention, which is due later in the year, which will happen. I mean, it has been due a long time. But the interesting thing is there's been an opinion by Larry Joseph, who is Dr. Larry Joseph, who is a long or standing member of the party. So that's been getting some play. What do you make of it? What's your sense of what's happening?
I am always one that believes a good opposition is important for a democracy. NNP has been a party around quite a long time and has not had these kind of strifes as it would. It used to be a well-oiled machine, well-structured and well-functioning. Yeah. It is disappointing to say the least that with all that's happening internally with the party and Dr. Mitchell and what is happening, to see this new thing come up about screening potential candidates for the leadership and talking about conservativeness and want them to be a certain way and to behave a certain way. And you have to wonder, as a mind that critiques and suspicious about certain things, because of the state and the length that the convention has taken. I think they're now proposing to have it sometime between now and December. What is pushing this particular new development? I suppose from a constitutional point of view of the party, it is not wrong, because I read the opinion by Dr. Joseph, which says it doesn't specifically say he cannot, but this is not the precedence of how the party has operated when it comes for its leadership. So he's concerned that it can be challenged again from that point of view. And if that happens, Byron, it will be even more sad from the point of view that the longer the party takes to put a leader in place, the harder it becomes to contest the next general election. You can remember, NNP has to replace the leader. If they're replacing the leader, and if Dr. Mitchell doesn't advise and he doesn't get removed as leader, any new leader that comes forward, the people have to get to know them, the electorate, the base, and so on. And on top of that, the various constituencies, 15, not all of the existing persons that were contested the last election will go back. So you have Dr. Clarice Modest-Cohen that may not go back, Yolan Bain Hosford, who may not go back, who have indicated that they're not going back.
St. David's,
right. The gentleman in Guelph, or Dabrio. Then you have quite
there's a lot of work.
Yes, there's a lot of work
to take place. But bottom line, who are they trying to keep in or keep out? What's making the rounds is Peter David.
That's right.
To keep out the radical person. Is he radical really? Is he?
Well, I don't know. I mean, radical.
What's it's like Trump saying Camilla is a radical.
Yeah. Well, radicalism is based on based on where you put it and what you feel.
But still staying with the politics, Chris, we had the leader of the opposition, this issue concerning Minister Kevin Andrews, some statement he made. Kevin Andrews. Tevin T. Regarding what's happening in Carriacou. I heard his statement, and I think the point he was making, what I understood, is that, look, we have a disaster, but start with what you have. Those of you who have resources, start doing something. Don't wait on hands out on the government. Maybe the mistake he made was making reference to civil servants teachers or what have you.
And so on, yeah.
But it's a distraction in the parliament. I mean, there's more important business to deal with there.
Well, quite frankly, I looked at the statements that Tevin made. I didn't see anything wrong with it. And
Yeah.
even though you're not teaching or you're not doing anything and your salary running as public
Yeah.
officers,
Yeah.
you should be the first one to say, well, let me see how I can help the situation
Yeah.
regardless. But
Yeah.
outside of that,
Yeah.
parliamentarians working out on each other is nothing new for the parliament.
Yes.
This is something we have been doing all the time.
Exactly.
It just so happened that it happened this time on the opposition
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
And normally is when you're in opposition, you do these things to create a point.
Yeah.
And it's normally a political point.
Yeah.
Because when the Prime Minister responded, it was all along the line of politics, talking
Mm.
about who's the father of the parliament and so
Mhm.
on and so forth. So it's political. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, as you say, it's a distraction of sorts.
Still same with the politics, Chris. We have a new senator has been appointed, replacing Jonathan Lacrette, Civil Francis from St. Patrick's, a young woman I know very well, since in the days when she was an Imani, coming right through in terms of her career and development. Worked with me for a few years in one of the rural development projects. Great potential, an activist, I think. It's a good choice.
Good appointment.
I wish her well.
Well, I mean, I don't know the young lady.
Yeah.
I looked at a serenade ceremony and
Yeah.
she spoke well
Yeah.
in receiving her instruments. And I think time will tell, you know,
Yeah.
and how she articulates
Yeah.
and how she
Yeah.
brings across her points. Parliament requires a certain level of training,
Yeah.
upper house or lower
Yeah.
house. And she has been, based on the profile, the CV they read out today, when she got appointed, she had a lot of experience in the youth parliament. So
That's
she
correct.
probably
Yeah.
has an understanding of the operations and so on,
Mhm.
and how to debate. But it's one thing to debate on your feet when points are thrown at
Yeah.
you and how you respond
Yeah.
versus,
Yeah.
you know. So it's good to see another woman in the
Yeah.
position.
And young,
And
youthful,
young, and-
very, very humble, high humility.
And I want to congratulate her and the
yeah,
government for the
absolutely.
appointment, and I wish
Yeah.
her the very best, because I like to
Absolutely.
see how young people
Yeah.
take a step forward and come forward to give service to the country.
Senator, we wish you well.
Yes.
Great potential.
But I want
there.
to stay in the parliament thing again.
Go ahead.
And talk about the supplemental bill.
Okay,
and
that's
funds,
been
yes.
Suspended.
The rules, the financial rules.
Financial rules, yeah.
When
Bond
you have,
payments.
when you have a crisis and you could
Yeah.
go for another supplemental bill to get additional funds and so
Right.
on. I don't have an issue with that. I think you could suspend, and based on what is coming forward, you could go for additional funds to meet the programs and policies and the issues of the rebuilding, whether it's agriculture, homes, and so on.
But were the factors that triggered the suspension adequate, Chris?
Well, that is the question
Yeah.
to some degree, because if you compare Beryl's costs in terms of GDP versus Ivan, it's a fraction of it.
Small.
In terms, I mean, ours was Ivan was 200 and something % more of our GDP, if memory serves me right. Beryl
Yeah.
is nowhere close to that, and the destruction.
Mhm.
The other thing I think that comes with this, which is a little bit unfortunate for bondholders, is that they suspended payments to bondholders. Again, I don't think that sends the right message. In Ivan, we went and renegotiate terms and conditions for the bondholders, but we didn't suspend payments. And that is something I think the government probably needs to relook, because what kind of amount of money is we talking to the bondholders? It's not 200 million, you know. So it's something they could consider instead of suspending it. And I think that is another area that in this particular situation and coming to Parliament, we need more information, and you know the parliamentarians need to inquire of the government a little more detail as why
yeah.
it was done this particular way and for what reason.
Because there's no comparison to Ivan in terms of looking at the GDP level of the impact.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
Chris, CXC results, the regional results. This was out last week, but what is most interesting here is that our students, regional-wise, and that's including Grenada, are underperforming in mathematics and English. In other words, as much as 44% of the passes, only 44% passes. That means we are failing over 50%. In the region, we have something like 11,500 students failing English and math, which means that they are unable to go to tertiary education in terms of original university to start with. So but the question is, what are the implications for the future if such a large percentage of our students are unable to attend tertiary education, higher education?
It is worrying,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Yeah.
I heard Jamaican Minister for Education said that we need to temper our shock, because she spoke about in 2022 when they had issues with the maths paper was released before time and students had access and they had to suspend the program and the pass rates was lower, and we should compare to the years carefully. But nonetheless, if we under 50%, it is a problem from two aspects, Baron. First one is, in English, it is a matter of communication, how we communicate, whether formally or informally. And the way of communicating is not only through verbal speech or body language. There's other ways to communicate, which is written. And most of the times, a lot of the things that we have is written, even though with AI, where AI getting the text to create speeches for us, is from people who have written before.
But the big question is, why is it like, what is contributing to this level of
Well,
failure?
I think a major part of it is the reading, right? Because the English teachers will tell you the more you read, the wider you read, is the more knowledge you gain, the understanding how to structure sentences and all of that. But then the other part with the mathematics is the critical thinking aspect that is missing and is absent. Because no matter which job you get, whether it's in IT, in tech, in administration, accounts, science, medicine, whatever it is, the critical thinking aspect is critical. You understand? Students having the ability to assess a problem and to work out in a structured way how we could possibly solve the problem, which is what critical thinking tends to go after, is going to be sadly lacking with this kind of pass rate in maths. And maths is not only about 1 and 1 equal 2. It is about, if you have 1 and you want to get it to 2, what are the steps that you take to get to 2? So it is about logic as well. And when you see that, you worry about our young people coming forward.
So is it social media? Is it teaching the teachers at the school?
I think,
is it parentage? Is it?
And I'm not an educationist, but I think the method of teaching is not as it ought to be, and the students are not attaching the kind of level of things that they need to attach to understand what is going on. So I think that is part of the problem, but probably not the only problem. We have students passing CPA, getting into secondary, and they can't read properly, right? I remember invigilating a CPA thing years ago, and the students from what we used to call Standard 5 at the time, looking at the paper and can't read and understand what the question is requiring. And you had to help them through and so on. Now we had a policy up and out. These students, by the time they get to Form 3, they get frustrated because they're being left behind. The teachers can't deal with them individually. They end up at Nulo or somewhere else.
I'm waiting
or
also
out in the gangs.
Yes, I'm waiting to see also what the specific report in Grenada is like and how it goes. Chris, something I heard Tevin Andrews on social media the other day, video of a major excavation taking place in Carriacou, and his comment was, well, I can't tell you what's going to happen here. It's going to be a surprise. You can't be doing major government projects and where's the community? Where's the consultation? Surprise? The other thing, there is a major project taking place in Woodford, an aggregate manufacturing. Huge amount of lands are clearing, rivers are being dammed. The community has no knowledge about it. They don't know. They're worried about the noise level that's going to happen to them. Was an EIA done, environmental impact assessment? There must be no surprise. The public should be informed and aware. If that doesn't happen, for me, it's disrespect.
Well, it's politics. I'm sad to have to say that. Because, you know, when we're in power in parties and political parties, we need to have legacy projects coming forward. Legacy meaning that this politician must be remembered for this project. So to spill the beans too early is going to take away from what is going to happen.
It's unacceptable.
I suspect that is what is happening here. But for us as taxpayers who would like to see the best thing fit on the land.
A bulldozer working, clearing lands, and you're saying it's a surprise? Like we're gonna tell you next month? Or, I mean,
I think that is not that is not good enough.
No,
I think it should
absolutely.
be done better than
Chris,
that.
hurricane season is on, you know, and we come into the major part of it. Projections doesn't look very good.
Doesn't, and I heard the Miami Center that watch hurricane systems is predicting that September and October inclusive of November,
Yeah.
the expectation is that we will have quite a number of systems coming through as far as November. So it is something we have to pay attention to still, because the season is right in the middle of it, with September starting, and we have had one already buried with damage. So we need to just be careful and not drop our guard and believe that, you know, we ought to the thing. But I want to raise one thing with you, Byron.
Go.
The issue of the amendments to the Firearms Act. I was looking at it this week, and it would appear that, apart from the Prime Minister indicating it would be draconian, which it is.
It is.
Right? First of all, the minimum sentencing, you can't, it's not nothing under 10 years, which is 10 and 20. So
if found guilty.
If found guilty.
Yes.
So you can't get 3 years or 5 years and so on. So it's 10 or up to 20. That's one, in terms of draconian. The penalties have significantly increased. There are areas where the penalties before were $3,000, now it's $100,000. And most of the penalties for infractions in the law centers around $50,000, coming from $5,000. So if you don't renew a license as a legal gun owner, you could be charged probably $50,000 and upwards.
Yeah.
So there is draconian, fine. I understand the Prime Minister's context in wanting to be draconian, because you're trying to prevent and fear people from doing gun crimes or involving in gun trafficking, whatever it is. But recent statistics have shown that if we have had 34 deaths in Grenada for the year, 3 is gun-related.
So the problems are the guns, the problems are knives and
cutlasses and so on. We just had one in Marion this week where a person gets stabbed. I mean, so I'm not saying that we shouldn't be more strong in the legislation for gun and the gun issues and what's happening there. That's not my point. My point is, what is the root cause of the crime and the violence
itself? So that's where the focus has to be.
The focus has to be there.
Not on the draconian measures for guns.
Right, and I think we have a regional thing here now from CARICOM talking about that as well.
About that, yeah. You know. So Chris, that's all the time we got for this. We have an interesting second session. We're going to have with us our special guest, Dr. Sonia Nixon. She's going to be talking about men's health, particularly the question of prostate health, you know, which is a major issue for us. So viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back with our special guest, Dr. Sonia Nixon.
Are you looking to rent chairs and tables? Then call Waggy T Rentals. We rent tables and chairs for any event. We have 7 different types of chairs: plastic, folding chairs, gray and white, resin white chairs, conference chairs, even Chivari chairs in gold and white. We also rent 6 feet and 8 feet rectangular folding tables, 4 feet and 5 feet round tables, and even cocktail tables. Give us a call at 444-RENT. That's 444-7368. Or visit our office at Frequente Industrial Park, Grand St. George.
Good evening back. Welcome back to Community Forum. My apologies for my little distraction. But as indicated by my co-host, we have Dr. Sonia Nixon with us this evening. Doc, apologies. She's going to join us on Zoom and to talk about prostate cancer and its prevalence in Grenada. And on top of that, in a recent report that came out, Grenada is signaled as one of the countries that have the highest death rates resulting from persons that get diagnosed with prostate cancer. So, Doc, are you with us? Good evening.
I think I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Loud,
we hear
yeah.
you loud and clear.
Thank the Lord, because I'm not good at this technology thing, okay?
You're doing good.
I'm from 2 generations before.
I hope it's not a
Good
function of
evening. Thank you.
a
Thank
function
you for
of
inviting
prejudice.
me.
Sure.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you. So first of all, Doc, I think you may have seen this report and heard of this report. For us in Grenada, I think the stunning thing was the amount of deaths for Grenada ranking number 1 from prostate cancer. And of course, the obvious question is, why is that? Is it because of our healthcare response to prostate cancer, or is it because of our lifestyle among men, not knowing the particular health position in relation to this disease? Your thoughts on this?
So my thoughts first go to where does data come from? Where is it generated from? Is it data that we can trust?
Okay.
You know, we hear stuff and we see. You can read scientific magazines that give you big stories that are quite convincing that are really duds. They're not of any value because it's just people make up data. I'm not saying in this case, I've been trying to figure out the source of this data. And while it says that we, whoever we are, I don't know who we are, that we are, have access data from World Health Organization and National Institutes of Health and CDC and stuff. It does not indicate clearly exactly who we are reporting this data. And I would guess that people, if it were World Health Organization, they would also indicate people like CARFA and PAHO, who do manage a lot of the data, most of the data, all of the data that comes, all of the health data that comes from the Caribbean. And this seems to be global, because I'm seeing Zimbabwe and Cape Verde and all the rest of it. The truth is, I don't know, I will not say yay or nay to this data. I will not, because I would like to verify its source first to see whether it is. I don't know, they talk about mortality. We know that most older men will actually have prostate cancer. Are we saying Mr. Joe dies of pneumonia, but he had prostate cancer? Is that included? Or if we're speaking about Mr. Joe just dying because of complications to his prostate cancer, that's an active disease. So there are other things we need to clarify if we're going to use this data. But I'll tell you what is important. What is important coming out of this is that I think it created a lot of sensation. And that's not necessarily what we want. But maybe it's good on the other hand, so we can kind of pinch ourselves. If 89 people out of 100,000 men, 89 is our number? 80, sorry.
80.
Out of 100,000 men were to die of prostate cancer, that's a significant amount. And it means, they talk about mortality, so it means dying. And like Mr. Diali says, is it that is our health response inadequate? What is the story here? And it's a combination of stuff, because, you know, I want us to look at this whole prostate cancer as one symptom among a lot of other symptoms, a lot of other factors that we have to speak to, we have to address when we look at men's health issues.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go to the issue of health.
Yeah.
That thing about being well physically, mentally, socially, right? General wellness. And we know that our men have a shorter expectancy of life expectancy. How long you expected to live on the day you're born, from the day you're born. The men are probably 4-5 years less than the women. And we know our boys die younger because of substances, suicide, accidents, those kind of tragic stuff. I was sharing last night on another program that there are actually more baby boys conceived, and what they know is that most of the babies who die, whether by miscarriages, are boys, are male gender. We also know that boys are prone to getting illnesses and dying earlier. So men tend to die earlier, which actually brings down the life expectancy in the male part of the species. But there are a lot of other things that are going to influence how healthy our men are, and it also influences how healthy our women are. But our men have a special role in our lives. Our men have the look at you. I mean, our men are still our leaders. We still live in a patriarchal society. Although the women do all the work, the men are considered the ones. They're still considered the ones who are going to be the breadwinners and stuff. So it is important that our men are well. It's important that our men are well enough to get proper education. We've just been talking about education. And we know our boys not doing so hard when they come on the education side. Yes, some of them excel, but the girls are way out. 75% of medical school students are girls. Go figure. Yeah. And engineering school is getting up there and stuff. So what is happening to our males in general? The health status is one of the issues we need to look at. And of course, prostate cancer, being only specific to men, does come up as the example, right? As a prototype of unwellness for men.
Doc,
how do we get?
Could I just interject here and say, when I looked at the data as well, one of the things that came to mind was the fact that, 20 years ago, was prostate cancer prevalent in men, but because of information and diagnostic advances, we now know it's at this level of prevalence. Is it that our socialization with our health as men have drastically changed in such that this is now one of the more prominent diseases? And that was something.
So we have.
Go ahead.
There has been, I think, from the 90s, there has been an increase in focus on prostate cancer, simply because we realized that our West Indian men in the Caribbean, appear to have had a higher incidence. There's a case of a young man who migrated to, his mother took him away to Canada as a child, never knew his father. And he turned up with prostate cancer, and because of all the research and stuff that had been done in North America, there's this thing about your father, that it can be, you can have a genetic predisposition to prostate cancer. And that guy came to Jamaica looking for his father and started a big advocacy campaign. And it was taken on by the public health officials. And I think it's something that has spread through the Caribbean, that we are going to look for prostate cancer. It's also easier to screen using a PSA and a digital rectal examination. So there has been a lot of talk. But how far has this education reached? Is it reaching all men? Is it, like you say, when you start looking for a disease, you will see a lot more of it. But do you just look for disease? How early are we screening? Screening is very important to see whether you have predisposing factors, to see whether you actually have the possibility, the potential, whether you're at an early stage of a disease or an advanced stage. So there are, in fact, multiple factors that determine whether or not, though that prevalence, incidence first, how many new cases, and the prevalence, how long you've been sick, how many people sick over a long period of time before death, right?
But in the Grenada context, Doc, a PSA is not an expensive test as say having to do a CT scan and all of those type of diagnostics.
No, PSA probably run you probably $80 in some cases.
Right, and the rectal examination again is not something that is overly complicated to administer. So the point I'm trying to get at here, is it that our men need to take pay greater attention to their health, because prostate cancer doesn't happen now in 40s and 50s and 60-year-olds. It's even getting to younger men as well. So is there a need for, as you say, on the education side, but to let our men know that this is something that we need to pay deeper attention to?
I think because it's so specifically sexual, because it does include a man's sexuality and how he's going to be affected. Men don't like to know that they can't function normally, and if I go and find this out, everybody's going to know that I have problem with my prostate, blah, blah, blah. The truth is that I think the greatest, this is my Sonia Nixon's opinion, I think the great conversation has to happen among men. Because I find that when men talk to their friends about screening for prostate cancer, there's a better response. The truth is we still have to have more ongoing education. Dealing with cancer is not only the responsibility of the government. And PAHO and the World Health Organization is asking us to spread our tentacles. You know, the healthcare agencies must work together and must work together with communities to ensure that appropriate intervention, for want of a better word, is done within our communities to ensure that whatever aspect of health is dealt with. Men are different. Yeah. Where are we meeting men? We meeting men in a rum shop. We meeting men playing cricket, football, whatever else they're doing. Okay? Are we meeting them linemen on a Saturday night, whichever part they want to do? We meet men at work. We meet men at other forms of entertainment. All right? We meet men in their communities. We meet men in the church. So where are we going to meet these men in order to explain to them, here's the thing. The saddest part of all of this, we're looking at death data. Let's say this were true. I'm not going to say so it is true. Let's say it were true. Why are we dying from probably the slowest growing cancer? When we have such simple methods of determining, right, according to your risk, and being able to do a digital rectal examination, which is not a very accepted procedure, which lasts 15 seconds if so long, and getting a PSA done. Do men understand? And the fear that men have, because we know that men are don't have good health-seeking behavior. They're not going to go. Very few men in our population. Think about your friends. How many of them say, boy, it's my birthday month, I'm going to check my prostate, and I'm going and see my blood pressure. Or they have a screening by the church. I'm going to walk down there and see what's going on. Let me see if I can check my sugar and my pressure, right? And my weight, and see if I'm obese or not, right? They're talking tonight about using substances, or they're talking tonight in the church about smoking. How many men will turn up? Okay, so what we have to do is really focus on converting our men to start thinking of their wellness, thinking in general. And prostate cancer is just specific to men. Women do not have prostates. Okay, so when it comes to that, you have to take in a bigger picture while yet focusing on the issue of prostate cancer. But you did also mention, Mr. Diali, you did mention that you know, whether the government provides a service. The Ministry of Health sees itself as the primary agency responsible for the health and well-being of Grenadian people, okay? Well-being, I'm talking about physical, emotional, mental, right? So let's say, I want to tell you how this phase they go. Screening. Screening is when you tell somebody, hey, let's look and see. Pull the curtain and let's look and see if you are. Yeah, a woman does not want to screen for prostate because she has none, a man will. Yeah. So he has to be informed. He has to be educated. He has to convert, because we are at different stages of change, right? He has to convert. Plus, how does the rest of society look at it? All right. Are we going to provide screening? Who does? Well, who does? Cancer Society does. Health centers do. But how many men know that? How many men already converted? I can tell you one thing. The men who already do prostate screen do their prostate screens regularly.
Mm-hmm. Doc,
so it's a question of
Doc, I want to agree with you here, and I want to say this also. The last death in my community was from a gentleman who the postmortem showed that he died from prostate cancer. I'm saying this to say that it is happening on a very regular basis in all our communities. But two questions I have here for you. To what extent is the healthcare system that we have, how can it better address the barriers that you talked about, the cultural and social barriers that you referenced just now? Because it seems that these are preventing men, or these barriers prevent men from seeking help early. The other point I want you to address as you take both of them is that you believe that there is a disparity in the healthcare facilities available for men compared to women in Grenada. And if so, how does this affect the overall health of men? So there's two aspects of it. If you can respond, please.
So men's health seeking response is generally, globally, low. Everybody will tell you. Every country you go to, generally, men are the one. Women will go to the doctor if their eyelash look green, even if they had on green eyeshadow last night. They will go to the doctor. Or they speak to somebody. They go talk to the nurse. Men are not that forward. There are a group of men, yes, but when you compare the percentage of men who will seek health interventions, they're less. Okay, they're far less. So we have to do ongoing education. And like I said, it has to be in the places where men, you can't stand up here. I don't know how many men listen to your program tonight. You can't stand up in the market and talk about prostate cancer and expect men to just turn and say, yeah, I'm going to get my PSA checked and I'm going to get my rectal exam. So generally, the whole history of health seeking behaviors is not something Grenadian. And one of the things we have to do is see how we can, like I said initially, encourage the participation of different agencies, the Cancer Society, other agencies, men's groups, the other health providing communities, right? We have to keep on. Remember also that our men, and it's not an excuse, it's a reality. Since men are the ones who provide for families, they're the ones who are going to go out early in the morning, especially when you go to rural communities, where you see a lot of men have not been checked for their prostate. When you go to rural communities, a man go up in the mountain 6 o'clock, he ain't coming to no clinic at 8 o'clock, plus the level of trust that the men seem not to have for people who provide health care. Men feel that if I go to the clinic, nurse going to tell my wife or going to tell my girlfriend that I have XYZ. Unfortunately, that is what the research is showing. And generally across the board, not just in Grenada, but even Grenada's research has shown that we have that kind of attitude. All men have that kind of attitude. There's no privacy. The other thing is that we have to figure out, when do we provide the care? And I'm going to look at the public healthcare system, which does have the facilities for screening, which can provide for screening. You have the doctors, and usually a rectal examination has to be done by a physician. Yeah. We have doctors and healthcare, but the men aren't coming. So are we opening the clinic at the right time, on the right day, whatever it is? Those are the things we have to figure out, whether it's there. You have to make it a little easier for them, because the conversion is difficult. Because doing a rectal examination is a very, very private thing, and we have to admit. But it's also a very, very necessary thing, okay? And unless we can convince our men, you need to get this done. And like I said, the men who have done it, go back, right? Yeah. You asked another question, provision of services, because prostate cancer management goes beyond just education and screening. So let's say I'm a convert, or John Doe is a convert, and he goes and he does his screening, and it's fine in 2022. And you say, Mr. Doe, I want you back here next year so we can just create some habits, create some good behaviors as to how we're going to ensure that you don't die from prostate cancer, especially if your father, your uncle, your grandfather all have had it, or a cousin of yours, right, because you're at risk. And you do his test, and you said 1 year. And he comes back, and you see a little change. And you say, I'm not happy with this. Let's do XYZ. Okay? After he comes back, where's the next move? If you suspect that something is going wrong here, because there are limits to that test that we do, the PSA. 0 to 4 is considered normal. All right? But if I see you today and this year, and your PSA is 0.3, and then when I see you next year, your PSA is 3.2. I'm going to kind of want to jump out of my seat and tell you, let's do this over and refer you, right? So we now need to say to this man in a way that doesn't create fear that makes him paralyzed. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what we think should happen. Prostate cancer is a very slow-growing cancer, very, very, very slow-growing cancer. And I can tell you, most men over 80 will actually have prostate cancer. That is known, right? Late 70s, 80s. But it's going so slow, they probably get knocked down with a bus long before, okay? You have to convert this man and send him to services. We have one urologist on island.
Yes.
There's one urologist that works in the hospital,
I was about
right?
to ask
Who's
about
now
that.
required to follow him up. Go ahead.
No, I said
No,
I was
yeah.
about to raise the point that the
Yeah.
lack of urologists on the island. I know is only one
So
we
there's
have.
one urologist that works in the government sector, who after 2 years of his tenure, and there are people who have been trained but would not be credentialed to do the surgery and do the stuff that until they go and do their specialization. So we need to also ensure that there are the resources, both human and otherwise, okay, that are required to do.
So, Doc, that was the
biopsy.
question I was asking. I was asking is, do you believe there is a disparity in our healthcare facilities available for men versus compared to women in Grenada?
Services.
Services. What is your sense of this?
I don't know what to say. I want to use a big word as disparity.
Well.
I know there's a lack, but I don't know what great disparity. Women just go to the doctors and they don't need, sometimes they don't need as specialized care as women who have prostates. I can't compare. It's kind of like chalk and cheese.
Doc.
But I know that the services are inefficient. You're trying to put words in my mouth. The
No.
services are not as yes.
That's fine. I would move on, that's fine. You have one urologist. That's fine. Urologist, yes. Doc, but we are dying earlier. We have shorter lives. What about our lifestyles? To what extent this is contributing to our early death or demise?
We haven't come to that. But when I started, you went straight into prostate cancer.
Yeah, so I am moving a bit. So the issue I want you to address, what are the other health issues our men in Grenada face? To what extent issues like diabetes and hypertension and mental health play a role in men's overall health? I'd like you to look at our lifestyle. Do we consume too much alcohol? What's happening with us?
So generally, like I said, we're not seeking out, but we smoke more. We drink alcohol, just too much of it. In the Caribbean, we consume 40% of the alcohol that we produce, right? Instead of selling it wide all over to the wealthier countries and bringing more revenue, we consume 40% of the alcohol, and we produce good quality alcohol according to what people say, right? But we drink it, all right? We drink it early. I've seen some very young men, and I'm sure you guys have seen them, who are already alcoholics, right? Or young people are exposed to alcohol from a very early stage, even though there are laws banning the procurement of alcohol for people under 18. Okay? There really kind of no boundaries. And if the older men are drinking, the young people don't have. We smoke. We smoke tobacco, which is probably the biggest enemy of our health sector, right? And if our men, and since we're talking men, do not get screened for hypertension and diabetes, what we will see is men with poor nutrition, because alcohol will encourage poor nutrition, right? Who are predisposed to metabolic diseases like diabetes. They will have hypertension, right? And by the time we see them, it's because they have complicated disease. And this is not for lack of access, it's that they don't access it. The same system that is there is available for females, men are not accessing, and that is what it is. How they use the health system that's available to them. Okay? So by the time you see a man with his blood pressure, right? And it's always too much to make lifestyle change. They eat whatever. They again, the alcohol that creates challenges in the liver, they have problems with their brains and functioning, and those are diseases that they have access to prevention.
Doc, do you have Doc, do you have any concern from a health perspective with the pending legalization of cannabis?
Yes,
particularly
personally, this is Sonia Nixon speaking.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking for my colleagues, but I'm speaking from experience. I've worked in mental health, and I've seen the degradation of and the challenges that use of cannabis has had, especially in our younger population. If you're smoking cannabis before the age, as a child, early adolescence, when you get to 14 years, when your brain begins to learn how to make decisions, how to control impulse, the whole executive functioning, your brain has a lot of challenges. Beside this, if you come from a family that is prone to mental illness, by the time you, let's say schizophrenia, we know that cannabis actually is a trigger factor for the appearance of diseases like mental health diseases like schizophrenia. No. Why am I concerned? Because I think people have not interpreted, and there must be education. I've spoken to guys who work on this committee. You have to educate the population as to what decriminalization of cannabis means. Decriminalization is not legalization. Mm-hmm. Decriminalization is using cannabis to create medical stuff, ethical stuff, right? And we should be educating our population as to what is the difference between decriminalization and legalization. That's what we need to be doing, else we're going to have problems. And we have seen problems in other countries where these guys think that's the way to do it. The other thing is that medical marijuana is, despite what people have said, medical marijuana is taken by mouth, it's not smoked. We do not smoke any medication that I know of. So there's a lot of education that must be addressed, and I hope that is done by the committee that's responsible for this process. I don't have a process with the decriminalization. I do have a process with not explaining to the public what the difference is, and that is Sonia Nixon speaking.
Doc, looking at future outlooks, what advancement in mental health, particularly prostate health, do you see on the horizon? I mean, what are the technology, what are the innovations that are coming to reduce the likelihood of particularly death? Because as you rightly say, that by the time a man reaches 80, a male, it is likely that he will develop prostate issues, whether enlarged prostate or otherwise. So what technology, what procedures are there? Where is that going to reduce the incidence of death?
Of death.
Yeah.
Look, the incidence of death will be high if people don't seek care early. That's a bottom line.
Yeah.
Okay? If people don't seek care at all. Because part of it, even men knowing that they have prostate cancer, do not seek care. Okay? But we have simple things like it's very simple to diagnose. Surgical procedures are being advanced. A lot of laser surgery becomes part of it. Doctors, high specialization in prostate removal, because one of the things that men are afraid of, that if they remove their prostate or perform a surgery called prostatectomy, if that is performed on them, that they will lose their erection. Now with very precise surgical interventions, laser, whatever technology, that nerve is often spared, so men can continue to live once they're healed, to have a normal sexual life, have an erection, and have a durable sexual intervention, in satisfactory sexual intercourse. And those are the things. I guess cancer medicine becomes so much more specific, very specific. So you get tested. What is it that, now that we're using all the biologicals and other drugs that are very, very specific to each cancer, it would mean that if you're diagnosed, once you can have access to medication, which is going to be very expensive since it's so very new. But once you have access to medication, because access is a very important thing, once you have access to care, there is a chance that you would have longevity. Not if you wait until the cancer starts extricate to other parts, start spreading all over your body, and there's not very much you can do once it starts spreading to bones and stuff. Yeah, you can have therapy that alleviates pain and discomfort and stuff, but when it comes to removing the cancer, if it's already metastasized, as we say, spread to other units, it's not going to be very, very helpful. In Grenada, for example, we don't have radiotherapy, so people have to go abroad. I don't think this is necessary either, because it's too costly to maintain radiotherapy among a small population because of the demand. But the only thing that is going to stop us from dying is having early diagnosis and intervention.
Doc, as we quickly run out of time, the My last question to you is going to be around the issue of early checks and accessibility, because even in the NCDs that you spoke about, which is a major killer among both male and female, of course, and prostate among men, I believe that access to simple tests by men, and I take note of the fact that you said we go in the mountain 6 o'clock and we come back 6 in the morning and come back 6 in the evening, so we don't seem to have time. But I believe the education must be adjusted to let men know it doesn't take 5 hours or 6 hours a day to do basic health checks, to do a check for whether you have high sugar levels, your pressure levels are above the standard based on how you work and your lifestyle, and what is required if you have to make adjustments to your lifestyle. So I say this to say, from where you sit, I do not believe, and this is my opinion as well, that for men, we need to take a little more care and understanding of what can kill us. If it's not NCDs, it's certainly prostate cancer, because as you age and as you say, it is a men-specific disease. Why don't we take more care?
So I'm going to agree with you. I think we have, and I said it in the beginning, we have to meet men where they are, because they have not yet converted to that sense of responsibility, that awareness, that need. It has improved somewhat. It has improved because of the early interventions, but it has to be. And I tell people every day, you go to church and Father uses the same Bible, okay? But he has mass every day, or they have church service every Saturday, every Sunday, whenever. You say the same Bible. You have to reinforce education information. We have to go there and meet men and help them, because I find that once men, especially in relation to prostate cancer, once they're converts, they turn up again. It takes articulating the information, not in a scary way, but in a supportive way, in a way that makes men realize that this is not as difficult. Every health center in Grenada, at every health center, a man may go to get his screening done. Every single health center. Plus, some of us have 200 doctors on island that we can visit and see. But we do have to encourage. We have to encourage, and we have to provide facilities yet for people who are non-converts. It's a question of continuing education, continuing support, and ensuring that our cancer care is optimized, because that is the responsibility of the government, to ensure that cancer care is optimized. You know, why would I diagnose if I can't treat? Go figure. Why would I diagnose a man as having prostate cancer, but he can't get his prostatectomy, and he's still at stage 1 or 2, where this is okay, that it has not gone out of the capsule, that thing in which encapsulates the prostate. It's still, I can catch it, right? So there are other things, and like I said, it must be multi-agency. It can't be just the government alone, because we have to be out there and have foot soldiers, but it also can't be us alone, because the government is going to have to provide care, access includes human resources. It's going to have to provide medications, because there are medications that some men take. It's going to have to provide mental health support for people who have prostate cancer. It's going to have to provide facilities for rehab, and it's going to have to provide the whole issue of, which we don't ever talk about, end of life issues. We don't have hospice services for people who are terminally ill, right? And we still find out if we have, let's say, if we had 49 men, I think in 2 years ago, who died of prostate cancer. So this data can be kind of close, but I don't know how true it is. But we have to ensure that there are many agencies that deal with it. And where we can't have, where the care is too expensive, in a small space, we have to, Caribbean is a small place. We have to say, okay, here's the place where you can do your radiotherapy. We have to ensure that chemotherapeutic agents are available. That is the medications that you get, that they are available and accessible. And maybe I can bring in the whole issue of a national health insurance, which will help to encapsulate all of this. because you have to make sure that people, when they get care, don't end up being poor. Okay? Yes, sir.
No, I'm saying that I want to give you like 30 seconds to wind up and basically your final advice that you'll give to men listening today about taking charge of their health. I know you touched on it many times, but what is that final word you want to leave us with?
Men don't like women telling them all the time, but guess what? We have the experience. I think, no, we do. We go to the doctor. But I'll tell you what, I think we need to support our men. I think we need to encourage our men. I would like to see more men encouraging their partners, your partner, your friend, to focus on their health. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we can't give up. I think we need to meet men in the places where they are. And I wish our men wouldn't be so scared. I wish they wouldn't be so untrusting. And I wish they would go. Because once they have converted to, a different lifestyle, men do go and take care of especially their prostate health.
Doctor, we want to thank you very much. That's all the time we have, Dr. Sonia.
Sorry, I have to cut you.
Nixon.
No, that's okay. That's
but
right.
this has been an excellent.
And thank you for having
it's
me.
a conversation we have to continue because the big issue here, Chris, has been not just the prostate aspect, but our health, our lifestyle. Whether we are consuming too much alcohol, whether we're smoking too much cigarettes, whatever. Now, that's our lifestyle. How do we care for ourselves?
I am part of an organization that is looking to roll out a program shortly to speak just to what Doc was speaking to, men and education and understanding the issue, particularly with prostate cancer, and how we could get simple tests done at free of cost.
So
PSAs and the rectal examination. And
but
so
a PSA is very married to digital rectal examination. Please.
Yes.
A PSA is not the absolute screening.
No.
And not global standards for screening for prostate cancer. I'm just telling you because a lot of people have been doing it, much to the detriment of patients.
I'm aware, Doc.
Okay?
I'm aware. I had both of them done, so I'm aware. I'm very much aware.
Okay, that's all the time we have. So thank you very much. I want to thank you very much for
Yes.
being there, and we'll have you again to continue this conversation. Thank you. I want to mention our technical staff. Chris, that's all the time we have.
Yes.
We
It
want to say
was
good
an
evening.
excellent conversation with Doc, and we really need to focus on our men in this
more,
issue.
yeah. Viewers, thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Don't miss all the tea. Activate a Digicel Prime bundle to catch up on all the drama.
fans, get ready! The CONCACAF Nations League is back, and the action is coming to the Kirani James Athletics Stadium. Mark your calendars for 2 back-to-back match days that will have you on the edge of your seat. On September 6th, it's a doubleheader you won't want to miss. At 5 p.m., it's St. Lucia versus Curacao, followed by Grenada taking on St. Martin at 8 p.m. The excitement doesn't stop there. On September 9th, Curacao battles St. Martin at 5 p.m. and then Grenada faces St. Lucia at 8 p.m. Tickets are just $25 for adults and $10 for children. Grab yours at Chucky's Bar, Grenadian Optical, Gittins Healthcare Pharmacy, the GFA office, or online at gotofet.com. And yes, tickets will be available at the gate. So bring the whole family and let's rally around our senior men's national team. The CONCACAF Nations League, football like you've never experienced before.